Hello. Oh, why is it doing that? There it is. Oh, okay. We are live. Hello, friend. Come pop in the chat. Let us know you are here.
Hello.
How's everyone doing?
Good. I'm tired, but I'm good. I'm ready for someone to just tell me what this book is about.
Same. I'm hoping Rainey, answers some questions.
I'm real ready for someone to explain the intricacies of Catherine House to me.
I feel like you are ready for something that I cannot fully.
Oh no.
Oh,
fair.
No. Oh, there it is. Good evening, or whatever time of day it is where you are. Oh, hello. Awesome. Okay. I'll let people come in for like another minute or two. But if you did read it and you're in the chat, let us know. Did you like it? Did you hate it?
Yeah. What's your score? Let the people know. Rainey, you're live. I just got a notification.
Me too.
Oh, yeah.
I got a notification too. Like
well,
we're not already.
Oh, hey, wait a second.
I would hope so, or else we're just talking to anybody. But someone's here, so
there you go.
There you go. All right. Well, I'm like, I don't think I guess you can briefly introduce yourselves anyway, because we hardly go on my channel.
That's actually true.
That's true. We hardly go on mine, so we'll start with Brittany.
Hi, I'm Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, and I do the normal booktubey things like sit down, TBRs, vlogs, the things. I mostly read thriller and fantasy, and lately romance. Don't know what's happened there. My entire February TBR is romance, basically. And that's me.
All right, Neva.
Oh, I'm Neva. Neva. I do a lot of vlogs. I have a Gilmore Girls themed TBR game. It's being revamped in March. And this year I'm doing bi-monthly TBRs and vlog style wrap-ups because that's just easier for me. So, and I do sprints. Not as many as I used to do because
we've kind of slipped in that where I'm like constantly live now. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I used to do sprints like 4 days a week or more. Now I just stick to once a week, and I do 24-hour sprints once a month.
Woo!
I'm Kelsey. I don't have YouTube, but stay tuned. I do Instagram, so my user is Reads with K, and I do like reels and reviews basically for the most part.
There you go. All right, friends. Oh, let me see. I started out hating the protagonist because she was so entirely without motivation and did not do anything but drink and party. But after 20
I understand. I didn't hate her, but
I feel like that's every Dark Academia book ever. Like that's just like a part of Dark Academia is that they're just like pretentious a little bit and just kind of like no matter what genre of Dark Academia, fantasy, no matter, that's just like part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also doesn't seem to matter with Dark Academia if they're rich or if they're like poor, like on scholarship, whatever. Yeah. Like they all most, in my opinion, most Dark Academia main characters are not super likable.
No, that's true.
Book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, Chrissy. Hello, Lexi. I feel like in the first 20%, we don't see enough of actual life in the house because Inez just sleeps and thinks about skips classes. Well, yeah, I'm sure we will get to that, which we will have a non-spoiler section and a spoiler section. So if you have not read it, this is your time to be here. And then when it's spoiler section, don't ruin it for yourself. Although maybe it wouldn't ruin it for you because this book is just weird. But
this book is weird. This book is weird.
Who's going to explain what it's about?
I mean, I could give you the that is the book synopsis. So a non-spoiler synopsis.
Yeah,
you'd like me to.
Yes. Who has a non-spoiler synopsis?
Sure, I can do that because I just watched my vlog clip before I did that, so I have it fresh in my mind. So this follows Inez, as Mika said, who has decided to go to Catherine House. Catherine House is like a 3-year private schooling. You can bring nothing with you when you come. You can bring no earthly possessions, no clothes, nothing. You have to wear what they provide. You cannot contact the outside world in any way. But at the end of the 3 years, they promise you like wealth and power and esteem in society. So that's the reason why you go. And that's pretty much all we know from the synopsis, other than that it's kind of like a cult vibes, dark academia situation. And there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
That's great explanation.
Thank you. That's where this is where you're going to see me just sit here and not know what. So that's where my help to this live is going to really slow down.
That's okay. Well, while we're seeing what everyone else thought of or didn't like it, which if you got here late, let us know in the chat what your rating was.
Yes.
Why don't we go around and say what we rated it and like a 1 to 2 sentence summary of why you rated it.
Sure. Where do you want to start?
Are we just going to keep it the same?
Yeah, we might as well. So
okay.
Just for organization.
So I gave it 3 stars. And the reasoning was I don't think I fully understood what was happening. And I still don't think I do. But I did not hate it in the time of reading it. Like I enjoyed my time with it because the atmosphere was really good. And like I like a dark academia, and I really did enjoy the atmosphere of Catherine House and this like cult type vibes. And that's why I got 3 stars.
All right. Neva, you're up. Or no.
Please hold. I gave it 4.5 stars. Originally I gave it 4.
Okay.
I think. Yeah. Originally I was gonna give it 4, and then I put it through Compile, and Compile said 4.5. So that's what we're going with. I didn't give it 5 stars. Give me 1 second.
Kels, why don't you do yours?
Sure. Okay, so I gave it a 3-star. Didn't hate it, didn't love it. I basically, like, I enjoyed it when I was reading, but I didn't feel like I fully understood it, and I don't like open-ended endings. Where, like, well, it's not that it was super open-ended. We'll get to the spoilers later, but I wanted more answers from things I didn't understand. So that's why I went with the 3.
Yeah. Do you want to finish yours, or do you want me to go?
Yeah. So I didn't give it 5 stars because there was a portion where I didn't quite know what was going on.
Okay.
Which I also went into this not realizing that it was horror. So I think that's part of, because on reread, like I knew what was going on because I actually read this twice.
Yeah.
So that's all I got. That's it.
Okie dokie. Well, I have a 4. I really liked it. It didn't scream 5-star to me like Bunny did, which Bunny is just as weird as this, if not weirder, honestly, I think. But yeah, I feel like I didn't fully understand everything that was going on in it, but I just loved the vibes and I liked the writing. And as much as the ending was extremely open-ended, I feel one of the most.
I thought it was too. I was like, no, it's very
okay. I was like, it's pretty open-ended.
Yeah. I still really enjoyed it, but I know that's not for everyone. Like, if you hate ambiguous endings, like this is not the book for you to read. Just to say. But it sounds like overall, no one gave it lower than a 3. So,
yeah,
that's all right. Yeah. I guess I'm like, what else could we even say before we go to spoilers?
Not a whole lot, but I think everyone here in the chat at least has read it.
I've read it, so we can just do spoilers.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I probably should have put a banner up already for that, but that's okay.
We can now. We haven't actually done spoilers yet.
I know, except for now I have to remember how to do this.
Oh, yeah.
How do you do this? Create a banner. Here we go. Yay, I did it. Okay. Let's do that. And ta-da. Okay, I did it. Yay. All right, go me. Okay, let's see. Did you guys like the perspective of coming from Inez? Did you like Inez as a character?
No.
How do you feel about her?
No.
Are we
but I don't
are we just going or doing a circle?
We can just
Oh.
go.
Yeah, just
Okay.
go. I don't think she's necessarily supposed to be a likable character though. So I think that's okay in this particular book.
I didn't hate her. I wouldn't say I disliked reading from her point of view. She was just like meh to me. You know what I mean? Like I
Mhm.
didn't like her, didn't hate her. I hated Theo, but that's the only character I really hated.
I feel like Inez is just a classic dark academia character.
Yeah.
I feel like most dark academia characters are relatively morally gray anyway.
Yeah.
And there is like with what has happened in her past, I'm not surprised that she is that way.
True.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of really liked her. I mean, she was, yes, very annoying, especially in the beginning. Like all she's doing is like partying and like all these things. But like when you start learning later on, like what she was going through, like especially with like the professor and other things, I'm just like, oh well,
Yep.
I still really like her. But that's just me. I don't know. But did you like? What were there other characters that you liked more, or that other side characters that you thought were like great for the plot?
Well, Theo added to the plot, obviously.
Yeah, Theo.
I didn't like him, but he added to the plot. And then Baby also added to the plot. I guess
Baby's
spoilers,
probably
so
my
I can
favorite
say it.
character.
But when she died, like that shocked me completely.
That made me
Yeah,
so sad. I really liked her.
Yeah, baby's death was a little rough for me. I was like,
I was
oh, okay, because I don't know. It felt like it came out of left field. Like I wasn't expecting her to die.
But I think also I would have maybe seen it coming had I known what I learned in the end of the book,
Yes.
what was going on at Catherine House. I wouldn't have been as shocked by Baby's death, but because we learned that in the opposite order,
yeah,
I was more like, what?
Yeah.
But refresh my memory. Did she know what was going on, or she found out when she went to the tower?
She found out not even when she went to the tower the first time, because she went to the tower before Baby.
No, for Baby.
No, I don't think so.
Oh no, I think Baby found out when she was in the tower.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. But then she was just like, "Oh, okay, I'll just give my body to science or whatever."
I guess.
Yeah, because she was really
find
behind
out that until the end. Like we never see Baby when she enters the tower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again,
they don't explain how she ends up going either.
Not really.
No.
No.
But I don't know. No, I felt really bad for her. And then I had liked Theo in the start, and then obviously he turns into a jerk and ruins everything. But that's just me. I guess did you like the atmosphere or the setting? Like how did that go?
That's my favorite. That was my favorite part of the book, was the atmosphere of the book, how it's written, the cult vibes of this book. That was my favorite part of the book.
Yeah, it was written like it kind of felt creepy. Like I wasn't super creeped out, but it definitely like the author did a good way of like just making it super culty, creepy. Like it definitely fit perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like all those times where they're like, "I'm in the house," or "the house is me," whatever they say. I can't remember
the chanting. Yeah,
that was my favorite part.
The chanting.
The chanting.
My chanting experience was enhanced by Brittany sending me copious voice notes of chanting. So here's the thing. So I don't know how anybody else read this book. I immersion read it the first time.
Okay.
Same.
Or
Me
tried to anyway, but then I kept losing my spot. It's fine. And then I just listened to audio the second time, just because like I already had like an idea of what was happening, and I was not going to try to thumb through this book a second time.
The chapters are long and hard to follow with the audiobook.
And there's no actual chapters. Like it's just chapter titles.
Yeah.
But listening to it, I think made it more understandable to me, because I did try to just read the book. Because originally I wasn't sure if I could find it anywhere without what was I saying? I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. I wasn't sure if I could find it. I ended up finding it on Scribd, but my library was booked out for Catherine House as far as the audio went. So I thought that I was gonna have to just read it on its own unless I was gonna like buy the audio. I will say that trying to just read it was a little rough.
Yeah,
me.
I think I probably would have given it a lower rating if I had just read it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that would have probably made it a 2-star read for me. But the audiobook was really good, and I immersion read it as well. So
Me too.
Yeah, I like the audiobook for sure. I feel like we get into a kind of territory that feels almost Buddhist. Reality does not truly exist. Personality does not truly exist. Yeah, I can see that. In the end, I gave it a 4 out of 5.
fair.
Nice.
I think we're kind of split in that way. And it's funny how, and I'm not surprised we split the way we did, because it's 2 horror readers and 2 who don't read horror.
Yeah, and see, once I realized that it was horror, here's the thing. Once I figured out that it was that it was supposed to be horror, I was like, okay, cool. Because with horror, you don't always quite know what's going on. Even with what people would not like, so like Grady Hendrix, even.
Oh yeah,
you don't always quite know what's happening.
Yeah.
And I feel like he writes a different kind of horror. Personally,
yes. I actually think that he writes a more digestible horror than most horror writers.
Yes, I agree with that.
Like his style is just more digestible.
Yes. But also I didn't realize it was horror either when I picked it. I just thought it was like a weird, I don't know. I knew it was like thrillery, I thought, but when it's actually categorized as like, I think psychological horror or something.
Yeah, I knew it was dark academia, but dark academia can either be thriller, horror, or fantasy. It can fall kind of anywhere. And I didn't realize it was horror either until I started reading it. And then I was like, what's this listed as?
Yeah, you guys told me, because I was like Rainey and I were the last to read, so I already knew it was horror going in. So I kind of expected that I wouldn't get the answers. So I wonder if I read it not knowing that, would I have liked it less, maybe?
Yeah, because that's my only thing that I just like dislike about the genre, and why I don't read a lot of the genre is I'm a fantasy girl who wants the world building and the explanations, and that's just not always in horror.
Yeah.
Which is kind of normal in the genre. And this one didn't have all the answers that I wanted.
Yeah.
I rated it a 3. I don't like ambiguous endings too much. Also was confused for the first 30% of the book. See, the first 30, I was like, I understand. I might make it through this whole book. And I understood most of it. But when we got to the plasma in the middle, I was like, yeah, I'm gone.
The plasma and the pins?
I know.
Yeah, the pins. I'm like, what?
The plasma part, the sciencey part of it, I don't think we're supposed to understand.
No, I don't think we are either.
But I want to understand.
Because, and here's why I don't think we're supposed to understand it. Because it seems like the only people that understand it are the people working with it.
Yes.
And so I think because we're following Inez through the whole book, she's never working with the plasma. She knows people that are working with it. She knows people,
but she doesn't even understand it fully. Yeah.
But she really doesn't have any idea of what the plasma is, what it's supposed to do. She asks people. I think she asks Baby and Theo both what it's supposed to do, and they don't really explain anything to her. So I think maybe if this was written like in third person, we would need to understand.
True.
But I think because we're following a character in first person, we are only going to understand as much as she understands. It's not like some first person books where we see the ending before we see the beginning, right?
Yes.
This book is very much, we don't see anything until Inez sees it. It's almost like it's almost like we are put, like blinders are put on us.
Yeah.
So that we can only see as much as she's seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. The cult vibes are the best bit.
Yeah.
I agree.
I liked the cult. I was like, oh, there's a cult in this?
I love cult books. I know some people don't. I love a good cult book.
Me too.
Because I text Brittany and I was like, is this supposed to be culty?
I agree with this comment. I think that might be it.
Oh yeah, I think Baby applied to the new materials and was told, well, you're not good enough, but here's how you could be a vital part of it.
Because she really wanted to be a part of it. So
and in the end, the teacher lady, what's her name?
Oh gosh, not what's her name? I don't remember.
See, I should have just tabbed name.
Veronica.
Veronica,
Like
yeah.
that?
She
Starts with a V. Victoria. Victoria.
Victoria, yeah.
Victoria. It's not Veronica.
in the end, the lady whose name starts with a V, Victoria, Veronica, whatever her name is. I should have tabbed names. That's what I should have tabbed in this. There wasn't really a lot for me to tab, but
Yeah.
names should have been.
Character names is always the first thing that I lose.
Yep, that's-
Not the main characters, but any like secondary characters. I'm like, yeah, can't remember.
She in the end, she was trying to get Inez to also be part of the plasma.
Yeah.
So
I wanted her to actually major in it, didn't she?
No, she want like how Baby became.
Oh yeah.
So because she gets put back into the tower, I don't even know how many. I've lost count how many times this girl is put in the freaking tower.
It's a few.
They think that she's just psychotic, clearly. But in the end, she tries to convince Inez to stay forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I feel like means you want her to also be part. You know what I'm saying? Because then we find out that Theo's behind it. And why would Theo be behind it if that's not what, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So like, and in the end, we are assumed to believe that she gets out somehow, but we don't know what happens to her. We just know that she's in the back of a truck and she's leaving.
But that the door opens or something, so it's like, oh snap! Like,
yeah,
right. We don't really know. It's definitely an ambiguous ending. I wrote a review. Hold on, please hold. And I'm pretty sure I even put in my review that I wrote it for myself, but I wrote it so I had it. I'm pretty sure I even put that I would not say that this book is for everyone. Like I would not like if somebody said, "What book do you recommend to your friends?" Like I recommend Hidden Pictures to everybody, but it's a pretty, other than that there's pictures in it, it's a pretty regular thriller horror book. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This book, I would not be like, if Brittany had not read it for book club, I would never suggest it.
I would never like read
Kelsey
it if it wasn't
didn't
for
read
book
it for
club.
because we were all doing it for book club. I would never suggest it to Kelsey. Like if this was on I think all of our TBRs, right? Except Kelsey.
Yeah, I only added it because of the book club.
Brittany, was this on your TBR originally?
I think so.
Okay, because I know it was on mine and it was on Rainey's. Because when
I think it was because it was Dark Academia on mine, which is usually a win for me. But I like Dark Academia, fantasy or thriller.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I, yeah. And I think when we all talked about it, when Rainey said this is the book that I want to do for January, which I think we talked about at the end of last year. I think
it was like the fall
when it was, when this idea was brought up and Ari named our book club. We were all kind of like, oh, this is on our TBR, except Kelsey, which I'm not surprised that this wouldn't be on Kelsey's TBR.
Yeah, it's definitely not my type of, like, I'm glad we read it because it's a different book than I usually read, but I wouldn't like reread it ever.
Yeah. So if I had read this book first and then Rainey was like, oh, I want to do this book, I would be like, we can. But like I would never say like, Brittany, you should read Catherine House. Like I would never.
But I sometimes like reading books that I wouldn't usually read. Like, because usually I read the same like romance, thriller, that type of thing. So sometimes I like for book clubs, like doing a book I wouldn't normally.
I just knew I was never going to read this if I didn't force others to read it with me. Because it's a book that I've heard so much weird stuff about. I was like, I'm going to make them read it with me. And then we're going to have to read it.
Yeah.
I will say this.
True.
Since this book is by a Black author, I feel like that in itself, because here's the thing. When I read Black authors, I assume that at least our main character is also Black.
Yes.
Because no Black author that I've ever read, someone can correct me in the comments if you want.
Writes white characters.
I've ever read, writes a white main character.
Yeah.
Like I'm just gonna be honest.
Yeah.
So I immediately assumed that Inez was Black, which adds to the horror element for me because most Black horror is stemmed in is stepped in experience
Correct.
or in fact,
Mhm.
right? So so because I assumed that Inez was Black, I think that added to the horror element for me personally, because I feel like you get horror elements even in things like Legendborn, which is technically fantasy. There are still things in Legendborn that could be considered Black horror.
Mhm.
And I think that if you don't know anything about Black horror, which I'm not saying anyone here doesn't know anything about it, but I'm just saying, like, in general.
Well,
if
I don't read a
somebody-
lot of horror in general, so I would
Right.
not know.
So if so, what is that book that just came out last year? Jackal.
Yeah.
Jackal is Black horror. So if someone who was not Black wrote it, it would read more as a thriller than as a horror.
Okay.
But because of the added racism and things like that make things in Black people's lives horrific
Mhm.
are also in there, it falls into Black horror.
Yeah.
So this book kind of does the same thing,
Mhm.
because I went into it assuming that Inez was Black because our author was Black.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Thomas could be anyone's name, to be honest with you. So I actually didn't know that Elizabeth Thomas was Black until I received the book in the mail, because I try not to dig around too much with dark academia, thriller, and horror. I try not to get too much of a synopsis because I don't want to inadvertently spoil something for myself.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I would necessarily suggest this book to someone who casually reads Black horror either.
Yeah.
Because just because you like Black horror doesn't mean you like dark academia. I feel like you have to kind of like both things in order to truly get to like this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Wait, they used her yearning for belonging against her. Yeah. I will agree. I did audio, and I think if I tried to physically read it, I would have DNF'd, and I never DNF.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Which that's fair. That's fair.
Wait, this is horror?
It is.
It is.
I was surprised it was horror too. Storygraph is not listed as horror. It just says thriller.
It wasn't like I don't know if most horrors are like really creepy, but like I didn't find it really creepy and scary. Like
no, and I think this goes back to what Neva's point definitely just was that there's a big difference between Black horror, which leans again on experience and horrific things that happen to people of color, versus other kinds of horror where it's like I've just thinking the twisted ones, which I read this year, which is like weird bones chasing you down the street. Like it's not that kind of horror. Doesn't mean it's not horror. It's just a very different kind of
true. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly,
Bree has a great video about that.
Yeah. And if it hadn't been for Black Rowena-thon, I don't know that I would have delved into Black horror last year. Because it's triggering for me, which I'm sure it's triggering for most Black people. But as someone who reads for enjoyment, and last year I was definitely just reading for vibes like all year long. This year I do plan on delving more into Black horror, but last year I was trying to read just to enjoy reading. And Black horror is not super enjoyable for me. I don't know how else to really explain it. It just because I relate too closely to the characters.
Yeah.
That it makes it difficult. I mean, I'm still gonna get like Jackal. I gave 5 stars. You know what I'm saying? It's not because they're not good books. It's just because it's not really an escape. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
it does. Absolutely.
This book also, I don't know if anyone else felt like this. A big reason I didn't give this 5 stars is because I felt depressed while reading it. Like I felt like, I mean, I have clinical depression as it is. And I felt like from the beginning, like I was in a depression spiral.
It
And
definitely was depressing.
It was just constant like ups and downs of
Yeah.
depression. And
Mhm.
I read this, and then I believe, and then I immediately read Magic Lies and Deadly Pies, which is like a cozy mystery
Love that one.
thriller book.
Yeah, me too.
And because I needed, because, and I was like, I pray that this book is funny, which it was. I listened to it in an 8-hour shift at work, but I needed something that was
Light.
right. I needed something that would give me a serotonin boost, because after, I think the first time that I listened to Catherine House, I finished it in a couple days. So I'm looking, it says I finished it in about 3 days.
Mhm.
So it's not like it took me an exuberant amount of time to read this book.
Yeah.
But it felt like it took me, like if someone had told me, girl, it took you 2 weeks to read this, I would have believed them. Like if I wasn't tracking it on a tracker, I would have believed them that it took me 2 weeks, just because it felt like a depressive episode the entire time. And then you also get, like, because Inez gets gaslit throughout the book, you're also getting gaslit.
Yeah.
So
You're
feel
following her. Yeah.
and anxious and crazy all at once. And I was like, this is too many emotions.
Yeah.
Too much happening.
Too many emotions.
Yeah, for sure. I understood the science part. Also majored in science, though. Oh, good. Lexi's going to explain it to everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Take it away. I'm kidding. Not really feel like horror to me, to be honest. More like atmospheric sci-fi, sort of.
I mean, there was definitely sci-fi, but I would definitely also classify it as black horror.
Yeah. James Baldwin did once, but most of his mains are black. One
Gotcha.
throwaway protagonist, I mean. And speaking of depression, anybody else who thinks that Inez's behavior in the beginning might be the result?
Absolutely.
And that was another thing for me. So I have CPTSD. I'm just out here giving all my medical diagnoses. It's fine. But it started with PTSD from whatever. And then there was an incident that happened that brought it into CPTSD, which if no one knows what that is, that's complex PTSD. So it definitely did feel like that to me, because we know there are horrific events that have happened in Inez's life. So I'm not surprised that her character has PTSD. But because that's not explained, like nothing is explained to us. You know what I'm saying? So like we're getting these like snippets of like that thing that happened. And we're like, okay, well, what happened?
Right.
Because Inez knows what happens, but we're the reader, so we don't know.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, but what happened? And then you get these like small pieces of this relationship with her teacher that's creepy, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But you're only given these small bits as she is thinking of them until we get like a full picture of it. Yeah. But you're only getting like spoon fed these little tiny pieces at a time. And so because of that, you feel like a crazy person the entire time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely had to, I don't know if anyone else did this, but I definitely had to take breaks with this book.
Yeah.
Like, it only took me 3 days to read it, if I'm going to be honest, because I had to take, the first time reading it, I had to take breaks in order to do things that brought me joy. I didn't really read any other book other than this one, just because I was like, I don't know that I can read more than one book with this book. Because this book was so complex that I was like, I don't know that I can concentrate on a second, third, fourth book, which I usually am reading more than one book. But I would like, we turn on BookTube and watch something that was totally different, like off subject of horror or Catherine House or anything, just because it felt like I was in a depressive state. The last book I remember doing that to me was it's a Darby Kane book. This second one, I can't think of what it's called, but
the
Replacement Wife.
Not Pretty Little Wife. It was
Replacement Wife.
Replacement Wife. Yeah, that one. Because in that book, you're gaslit the entire time, because the main character is being gaslit by her brother-in-law and her husband and the police and whoever else. And that whole time, that book I think took me like 2 or 3 days to read also. But at the end, I was like, I feel crazy. Like my dad read that book and he said even he felt like he was gaslit the entire time. So like, and I don't have books that usually do that to me. Usually I can kind of compartmentalize it in my brain. But this book was not a book that I could like distance myself from. Like once you're in it, like you're just kind of in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely relieved to finish it. Like towards the end, I was like, all right, I'm just ready to move on.
Yeah, for sure. I also forgot though. I really liked her one friend Yaya though.
Hold
Was it?
on.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one that's just like always there for her, and she visited
Yeah.
her in the tower because she
Yes.
got points. I was just like, that's a good friend.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like she could have been in it, or I feel like she could have been in it more, but I liked
Yeah.
her. Okay, but is there any plot points the book didn't address that you wished it had?
Well, we could be here for an
The
hour.
plasma.
Right.
The pins and the plasma. I would have loved more. I would have loved any sort of even vague explanation.
Yeah.
Of what that did, because that I don't think had anything to do with what we discover at the end, because they did it to everyone. They put pins in everybody.
Well, I think the pins like somehow
messed with your brain.
Messed with their brain, yeah. But I don't know the exact. Yeah. It did something.
I think it probably brainwashed them.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I feel like you could go to Catherine House and then get there and be like, oh, this is a really weird place. Like, I need to get out of here. And they'll like convince you, oh, like, never mind. It's fine.
Well, and we saw Inez do that in the beginning too.
Yes, and then when she had the pins,
he didn't want to be there at first.
Yeah.
She was like, I don't want to be here. This place is weird. This is not what I was expecting, type thing.
Yeah. So I think that it was like a thing where, yeah, like a brainwash, like Rainey was saying, where eventually more that they put the pins in. Yeah.
There you go.
Get more brainwashed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just, yeah.
Yeah, because she caught on to it because she didn't want to use the pins.
Yeah.
Anymore. Understandable, of course. Well, were there any notable scenes or favorite parts for anyone, or was it just kind of all across the board?
Okay, well, hold on. I have a question. So so I understand that some of them don't have parents, or their parents maybe aren't active in their lives and they just like got sent off there and they don't really care. But you're telling me no parent out of all the kids in the school was questioning why their child can't like speak to them for 3 years? Like, does that seem normal?
I can explain this. You ready?
Oh, okay.
So because we know that there are people that do have parents, I think Baby is one.
Yes.
Who has very active parents in her life, apparently. And it is briefly explained because Inez is also confused by this because while she has no one other than this weird teacher.
Yeah.
She has no one, right? So for her, it doesn't matter. But for people like Baby who have parents, apparently it's explained to the parents that there will be no contact.
But when you question
it,
but because parents like babies, all they want are for their kid to go to Catherine House. So they're willing to do whatever it is. And I think that adds to the cult vibe.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I really want my kid to go to this prestigious school, right? So I'm going to do anything I can to allow them to go. Is basically what that is.
True.
So it's not so much because there are other students that are like, it's weird to me that I can't speak to my mom. It's weird to me that I can't speak to my friends. It's weird to me that I can't bring up blah, blah, blah. And because Inez says at one point, she was like, is it your birthday? And the girl is like, it's some kind of day.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So like they're supposed to basically just like not acknowledge the life before. But from what I'm understanding, if they have people in their lives that might be like, well, this is weird, it's somehow explained to them. Now, do they use pins? I don't know. I'm actually kind of wondering if that's what they do because it does seem too easy. Because I feel like if Ariana got inducted into a school, and they were like, I'm sorry, it's going to cost them 400 points, and those 400 points are going to be impossible for them to get, so they're not going to be able to speak to you for 3 years, I would be like,
Yeah, but I don't think they tell them that.
No, I think they say
No,
they
I
just have to get these points and then they can call you.
Yeah.
Right. But I feel like even if somebody was like, they're not really, unless they do XYZ, they're not gonna be able to speak to you for 3 years because it's so prestigious. I'd be like, well, that's weird.
And then once they get out, so they're there for 3 years. Once they get out, none of the students then like say anything about the experience.
You're given like these positions of like power, which never really was explained other than in the synopsis.
No, they say that presidents go to the school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are never explained how that happens in coordination with.
When did this take place? Did this take place like years ago? Does it say?
I think this is supposed to be a contemporary type.
Like, yeah, I think like current times,
like a present day.
Okay.
But the thing is like they explain that like presidents have gone to this school. Like these are high up people, presidents, judges,
lawyers. Yeah.
Like these are like people that do something.
Yeah.
That's why some people don't make it through, is because like in the beginning, Inez isn't going to class. She's not doing schoolwork. She's not blah, blah, blah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell them like, if you fail out, like you don't want to fail out, because if you fail out, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like either you get through Catherine House or you don't. Like, and I don't think that they integrate you into society if you don't.
No, I'm assuming that's what happened to the people at the end of the book.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is like they can't integrate you into society if you don't make it through Catherine House, because then you might say something.
That is true.
You might say Catherine House is a freaking crazy a loony bin, like this place is a cult, like don't go there. And they can't have that, because to the outside world, like to us, it would look just like like a Harvard or
a really prestigious academy.
It would look like a Harvard or a Yale. Most of us are like, oh well, I'm never gonna get in there, you know what I mean? So we're not gonna question anything. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody questions like an Ivy League school if you can't get into the Ivy League school, because you're like, okay, well, this is like the best of the best.
Yeah.
Oh, do any of you know Anil Kumar Seth? He's a British professor of cognitive neuroscience, and he has a TED Talk. Your brain hallucinates your conscious reality. I feel like this could be the subtitle of it.
Yeah.
Hello, Skylar.
Hi.
I'm late. LOL. I rated it 2 stars. Boring, and I didn't like the writing. Not for me. That's okay.
Yeah, it's definitely not. Yeah, it's definitely not a book that I would just be out here. Like if somebody was like, "Oh, do you know a good?" Like if someone came to me and was like, "Do you know a good beginner horror?" I would not give them Catherine House.
Nope.
There's too many. There's too many sub genre elements to Catherine House. You know what I mean? I think I even put in my review. Yeah, I even put in my review that like I would recommend this book to horror lovers, so people that read horror routinely, not people that like dabble. You know what I'm saying? Readers who love twists and turns, and anyone that enjoys a good mind F is basically what I said. Because like if you're not, because I went into it thinking that it was just dark academia. Also, I'm a moron. You can tell I did not read the synopsis of this book before I read it. Okay, because I also thought this thing took place at a high school, not at a freaking university. So, like, because I went into it and they're talking about like sleeping with people and drugs and alcohol, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I would literally was on. I think it was right before us, like a sprints or something with the 3 of you, and I was like, just wondering, is this supposed to take place at a high school? Because like I was doing crazy crap like this in high school, but like the majority was not. And Brittany was like, no, this is college setting. And I was like, oh, that explains everything, really.
Like, wait a minute. How old are these people?
And I was like, are these like 16-year-olds out here just like wilding out, and their parents them to like
they're
school
in their 20s, I'd say.
Yikes.
Or like at least 18.
Or 18, 19,
at
20
least.
in that frame.
Yeah.
Which that made so much more sense, once I asked the question.
It's like, I have a question for the back.
But I also personally like Elizabeth Thomas's writing style.
This is
Yeah,
my
I
first
didn't have an issue with it. No,
I
I liked it.
that was my favorite part of the book, is the atmosphere and the writing style of writing.
Yeah.
That I would be open to reading another, but I don't think
She
Elizabeth
doesn't have any others.
I think this is her
Oh,
only.
that's her
I was
first.
gonna say, I think I looked,
If
and this was
she-
the only book that the author has published.
Okay.
If he writes another book, like for me anyway, she would.
Well,
be
and I don't know if like, I think they are an author that could potentially not write horror every time, because there is
True.
subgenres in this that it's an author that could go in many different directions.
But
Yeah.
I also feel like her writing style won't change. Her writing style,
No,
Which
exactly.
is I liked, so yeah.
Me too.
her writing style will still be. I don't want to call it flowery because that's not really right, but it's
Atmospheric.
atmospheric and it's ambiguous. You know what I mean? She doesn't give us very many answers. Like I feel like the only thing that I probably would not love if she wrote it is like contemporary romance. But if she stuck to
Well, that would be a real. But
but if
real
she stuck to
creation.
like dark academia, fantasy,
Mhm.
horror, sci-fi, like I would read anything.
I would definitely try again. Like, I didn't dislike it. I didn't dislike it. Like I said, I gave it 3 stars, so I didn't dislike it. That's like middle of the road, and I really did. That's the part I liked, was the writing style and the atmosphere were my favorite parts.
Yeah.
So I would definitely give another try, maybe with a book that's a little less what is happening, if the author were to write a book that way.
Yeah.
By that point, after 3 years, they're brainwashed. Yeah.
True.
Oh wait, what were y'all's ratings? Brittany and Kelsey gave it a 3. I gave it a 4. You gave it a 4.5. Yep.
Honestly, I'm glad that none of us gave it like a super low score.
Yeah.
No.
I also did what Rainey did, and I went and watched Books and Lala's live stream about this book, which is actually how I heard about this book to begin with, and then I just never watched the live stream because I never read the book. So
Right.
there's that. I will say this: they are braver than us, because they do that like super close up.
Oh, the close-up view. Yeah, no, thank you. I don't even know why that's an option.
No.
They all gave it high ratings as well. I think here's where I was a little worried was I was like, Meg from Meg in the Books, she was on that live stream and she gave it 5 stars.
Yep.
And I don't usually agree with Meg, like ever, because like Meg and I just don't read the same books. Like, I mean, we do, but we don't like the same books, if that makes sense. But yeah, because they all gave it between 5 and or 4.5 and 5 stars. Erin, I think, gave the lowest score, and she gave it a 4.5. So like,
Okay.
and she gave it a 4.5 for similar reasons that I did. So like watching it like validated my feelings, but also I was like, okay, maybe I'm not like a crazy person.
Yeah.
And I'm not just like out here like enjoying a book that everyone else like hates. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I definitely think that it's not for everyone. Like, it's not
No, it's
written
not.
for like the masses to enjoy.
But I think I would have liked it if it was just like a few more things would have been more innately explained. Yeah. That's just my personal reading style.
Yep.
So for this, because Skylar wasn't here, I'm just going to say what I said before about the Black horror element. I think because I went into this book knowing that it was written by a Black woman author, or I should just say a Black author in general. It doesn't really matter if they're a man or a woman. And you know what I'm saying? For me, I assumed that Inez was Black. So I went in, once I realized that this was horror, I went into this, even before I realized it was horror, there were still Black horror vibes to it. That I was like, I don't know if this is on purpose or if this is just reading Black horror to me because it's a Black person's experience. So I think the twists and turns didn't have to be crazy to me. They didn't have to be like punch you in the face, because the twists and turns that were in here were based off of an experience.
Yeah. What twists and turns? I'm kidding. There were not crazy enough ones for me. I misspoke. I like the writing okay, but I think it'll improve if she does publish again. It felt like lit fic with attempts at horror. But maybe I need to reread it.
Skylar, did you read it with the audiobook or did you just read it with your eyeballs?
I don't know. But she also says, yeah, I didn't know she was black. I didn't know what's about race going in, so ignore everything I'm saying.
And to be honest with you, it's like I said earlier, Elizabeth Thomas is a very ambiguous name. Okay? Like, that could be anyone's name.
I was actually, when you brought this up earlier, you were like, I don't know how I knew she was a person of color. And I was like, that's a really good question. I think you even see me make a face at me, like trying to figure out how I knew that, because I did.
The cover, it's on the... It's on the back cover.
It's on the back cover, but
yeah, but I think I knew before it was on the back cover.
Oh,
before anybody even got the book, because she was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's by a black author," and I was like,
"That's what I mean." And I think you even see me make a face of like me trying to figure out how I knew this.
Yeah,
but somehow I knew, because even for the vlog I'm doing, it's like a prompt poll vlog, and the prompt was read a book by a person of color, and I was like, "Oh, great! I can do Catherine House." And for some reason, I just like.
You knew.
I'm sure at one point I learned the information, but I cannot pinpoint the time that I gained that.
I guess with a name like Elizabeth Thomas, I assumed that this was a white person,
and I could see why you would assume.
Rude. Like, that's very rude of me, and I apologize. But like, I didn't assume that this was a black author. You know.
I was glad to read another black author this year, because I want to add more diversity to my reading. And I feel like that's something that especially me, have to make a conscious thought of, because I feel like publishers don't push.
No.
Like, you just don't see that as easily. So I have to like dig, I have to look, and I have to make a really conscious effort to.
Yeah.
You definitely do, because it's not, they're not pushed by people, which I think is also why I follow a lot of black creators, like black booktube people, because that's and also I do follow the black side of book talk. I don't follow the regular side of book talk because they're crazy and toxic, but I follow the black side of book talk because it's the only way that I hear about black books without trying to figure it out for myself. And sometimes when I'm trying to figure out for myself, I think that something could be written by a black person and it's not. And then I get annoyed with myself because I'm like, well, obviously you didn't do enough research, dummy. Like, what are you doing?
No.
So it's easier for me to follow black creators and then just add those books to my list.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. What about, are there any books or movies you would recommend to people if they like this sort of thing?
I can't help with this question.
Me either.
Books.
I have like 2, so if you want to thank me about, I have at least 2.
Okay, you
obviously Bunny. So if you've not read Bunny, I recommend it. It was 5-star. I had a great time. However, you will not understand anything that's going on until your second reread. I'm not going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. And then what was the other one I had written down? Hold on. Where did I put it? Wait. It was. I have 2. What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. That was another one that's a very weird horror, which is it's a retelling of an Edgar Allan Poe short story, which I read that too as well before I read that and didn't understand a lick of what was going on. And I'm not going to lie, I still hardly understood what was going on in the T. Kingfisher one. But I feel like they have the same vibes in a sense of like.
I second Mika's comment because I actually read that book and it is very similar, but I liked it better.
Oh, which one? Never Let Me Go?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. Oh, Ace of Spades.
I was about to say this one as well.
Okay, I have that.
I would suggest Ace of Spades, because Ace of Spades has a pretty ambiguous ending. I mean, people get what they deserve, I suppose, but it's another one that when you read it, it's black horror. Like I don't know like how else. I think it's categorized as dark academia / thriller, but it's definitely black horror.
Like, is I've heard somebody, I think, like say it's kind of got like Get Out vibes, but also like Pretty Little.
It has Get Out vibes. It's definitely like secret society type thing. That one does take place in a high school.
Yeah.
And it's marketed as YA. I don't know that I would give it to any child over the age of or under the age of 16, if I'm going to be really honest.
Okay.
It's if we're going to market it as YA, it's definitely older YA. And my sister read it before I did, and she's just turned 19. So she read it last year, and she was 18.
Okay.
So, the other one that I would suggest if you liked Catherine House, even if you didn't like Catherine House, but you want to read more Black authors, is the book I'm Not Dying With You Tonight. I read that last year. I believe that's what it's called. Hold on. I believe that's what it's called. I read it last year, and I got it. I picked, I'm Not Dying With You Tonight. I picked it up as an audiobook from the library just because I probably will reread it this year, to be honest with you. I picked it up from the library just because it was saying it was YA, but that it opens up a discussion with your teenagers or your children about racism and, the nuances of that. Here's what I'm going to tell you with that book. If you get the audio, it is, because it's dual point of view, it's read by a white woman and a Black woman, respectively, which I actually truly enjoyed about this book. But it is, I would say, Black horror, because it's written by a white woman and a Black woman, and then there's a white woman and a Black woman that narrate the book. So it's a dual point of view with two authors. And it's not quite like Catherine House, but I would say that if you enjoyed Catherine House, it would be around the same as far as like the Black horror elements of it, because that one is YA. I'd say probably 14 and up, if read with a parent, but it is YA, and it has to do with like a race war, is essentially, but it's set in like modern day America.
Yeah. Well, the only other one I would recommend is Comfort Me with Apples.
I haven't read that yet. It's on my TBR.
That one is also very much like, what did I just read? But also, I really enjoyed it. I mean, but I can't say much more than that because it's just, that'll ruin the whole thing. But that's fine. Oh, and then Red at the Bone for just a Black author's book. Nice. Does anyone have any final thoughts on this book?
Silence. Just absolute silence.
I feel like we said a lot.
I think we covered everything.
I think we did.
I think we did.
We did. Well, does someone want to say what our next book club book is?
We're doing the read along next.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing, I guess I'll say it because it's going to be on my channel.
Yep.
We're doing the Sort of Glass read along. So the first one we're reading is The Assassin's Blade. This is the bind up of the novellas. We decided to read them. I'm pretty sure this is publication order because I'm pretty sure that the novellas actually.
It's not publication order. The novellas came out after. They came out like after the fourth book.
Is it chronological order?
It's a chronological order.
The only way you can get the novellas now is as a bind up. They used to be individual books, but they're not any longer. Yeah, that's really it. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's Sarah J. Maas's. Is this her first series?
Yeah.
And it's completed. So there's 8 books. They get chunkier as we go. So you're welcome.
And just so if everyone wants to know, the live show for that is February 26th at 2 p.m.
on my channel.
Yay.
I will make like thumbnails and all that crap.
Yeah.
In the next
week.
Channel. And it's YA fantasy.
Nice. Cool.
So you're welcome.
You're welcome. But with that, that is our next read. And this was our Catherine House chat. So if you missed it or were late, you can always go back and check it out and let us know your thoughts and all the stuff. But yeah, join us for the next read. I think that's it.
Yeah.
We can say goodbye to all the people. Goodbye, friends. We'll see you next time.